Okay, everyone, it's 6:02 and I'm going to get started. Let me start off by saying that we are recording this, and if you know someone that was unable to attend, or if you missed part or your computer goes bad on you, whatever, this will be available through the city's webpage, and through Guiding Golden. We will have comments open for this project through August 14th. So if it doesn't work well for you tonight, or if we all hang up and then suddenly you have a epiphany, there is plenty of time to deal with that. So welcome to the kickoff meeting for the design of US6 and Heritage Road Interchange. Kara, if I can get the next slide. So who will be helping tonight? Well, first off, Dan Hartman, and that's who I am, Golden Public Works Director. We have Ann Byerly, who is our Golden Deputy Director and handles all of the utility side of the Public Works Department and the environmental side, and she will be responsible for the environmental clearances as we go through the design process. We have Joe Purr, who's the Golden City Engineer, and Joe will be the project manager for the City of Golden. We have from our consulting firms, and Muller Engineering is our primary consultant for this project, and Muller was actually the lead engineer when we did the US6 and 19th project. So we have had good history with them. And so from Muller Engineering, Nancy Lamberson, who will be the project manager for Muller. We have Matt Andrews, who's the project principal. And from MIG, which is a landscape planning firm, we have Paul Kuhn, and Paul is a landscape architect, and it says an aesthetic specialist. What that means is Paul can pick colors because Dan can't. And if anybody asks what color should it be, it's ask Paul, because I don't do colors. And that makes him critical to the project. We have Jay Rankins from MIG, and Jay is Director of Planning Services and Director of the Denver office. Jay has also had probably more experience than most of us doing this type of project, public input session, and Jay has been very helpful in getting this project program together for tonight, and he will be guiding us farther as we get farther along. And then finally, we have Kara Ferwinski, who is with MIG. She is a landscape design associate with them, and she is helping with an awful lot of the logistical stuff to make this happen. I do need to say that this is only a small part of our project team. We obviously have a much bigger team that has other disciplines, environmental specialists, structural engineering, surveying, all kinds of things. But for tonight, this is the team that's representing us. I also want to thank Steve Durian from Jefferson County. Jefferson County is a partner with the City of Golden on this project, and Steve will be working with us as we go through design, and we are appreciative of Jefferson County's support. Also, I need to say a thank you to Ben Davis and Janice Spiker from the Colorado Department of Transportation. CDOT is a partner with us in this project, and we appreciate their help. So I want to start by saying when we did US6 and 19, we were able to brand the project. And we branded the project as Linking Lookout. And that branding helped us as we put information out, as we talked to the public. It helped us in a lot of ways. And I will tell you that this entire team has racked our brains trying to come up with a branding name for this particular project. And I gave them my list, and they all held their nose and threw it out. I guess, besides looking for outcomes you would like from this project, if one of you brilliant marketing people out there have an idea on a cool branding name for the particular project, submit it along with your comments, because I haven't given up that we could brand it. It's just we're not there yet. So normally we would be doing this project kickoff in a room where we could all be together. Obviously, we're doing it different tonight. So just as a quick intro, we will have 3 different sections for tonight. And in the first section, I will drone on about the history of the project, and you will be glad when I'm done, but hopefully informed. Then we'll have some short polling questions that we ask you to answer. And then finally, we'll flip into a session where you can offer the outcomes you hope to see, as well as ask questions. So remember, we are looking for outcomes. We're not looking for design ideas. So think broad, think big. Let me start by saying the corridor, way back as far as the 1960s, they had been looking at putting a high-speed beltway, freeway through the middle of town. And in an election, because they looked at it a number of ways, they couldn't get it done. And so there was an election in the early 90s. It was the same election that E470 was constituted through. And as part of that election, they were looking for a $10 vehicle license tax for all the vehicles, or for all the people that own vehicles within a certain distance of the center line of the freeway. That election on West 470 or W470 was an overwhelming failure. In Golden, it failed by 5-1. And after that election, City Council started really thinking about the impacts of that kind of a highway that would come right through the middle of the community. And so we did a lot of studying through the early mid-1990s about freeways and their impacts, and how we might mitigate them. And then beginning in 1999, we started developing what we call the Golden Plan. And I will say Muller Engineering was with us then. They helped us develop the plan, so they've been with us for a long time on this. And as part of the plan we put together, we had slower speeds, we had less lanes, we had connecting bridges, we had a lot of things that were not normal to CDOT at the time. And we spent most of the early 2000s up to 2010-11 dealing with repeated attempts to build a major freeway through the community that did not look anything like the Golden Plan. Along the way, we developed a no attorney left behind provision and hired most everybody in the state to represent us, and managed to finally position ourselves with a new administration in CDOT to sit down and really negotiate. And we, at that point in time, had things in the Golden Plan that CDOT could not live with, and we understood that. But there were things that they could, and there were things that we could compromise on. And so we updated the Golden Plan in 2012, and at that point in time had numerous, I think 4 or 6 different community input meetings about the plan. Now, the plan was not specific. It had big elements, and the specific parts of those are when we start designing things, like the start of the designing of heritage. That plan was complete. The update was complete in January of 2013. City Council adopted it, and later that spring, we signed a memorandum of understanding with CDOT, and that what would be built in this corridor for regional traffic would be the Golden Plan. Then in 2016, a group of the communities all along the West Corridor, a bunch of them, Lakewood, Jefferson County, Boulder County, Broomfield County, Arvada, Westminster, all got together and created what they call the West Connect Coalition. And as part of that West Connect Coalition, we worked with CDOT, who was part of our West Connect Coalition, and completed what is called a planning environmental linkage study, which simply means that we've looked at alternatives and we have recommended alternatives along a corridor. And as part of that planning environmental linkage study, everyone agreed that the Golden Plan would be the plan through Golden. And they agreed to that easily because of the vast amount of public input we had had over the years and the high level of support we've had for the plan. And so that that could be easily adopted and incorporated into the West Connect Coalition. So as we came around to 2017, we were at a point where the fight about what would get built through Golden is essentially over. That Golden had worked with CDOT. We have a plan that we believe works for everyone, and now it has more to do with implementing. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So in Golden, or the Golden section of it, we have an intersection at Heritage, intersection at 19th, intersection at Highway 58, intersection up at Washington. And if you see that little blue dotted towards the north end, the road moves away from its current alignment as it goes north out of town. Next slide, please. So here is the intersection we're looking at starting to design tonight. And this is what we have out there today. And what we want from you, and you will hear this repeatedly, is we want outcomes. We want, well, gee, you know, I want to hear birds chirping, or you want to be able to have a beautiful view of North Table, or outcomes, things that you would like to see happen. We don't want you to tell us how to build it. We want to tell you what you tell us what you want when we complete it. We will then, through the process, you will hear from us 2, 3, even 4 more times as we bring ideas and alternatives back to you that we think meet those outcomes. So we're looking for outcomes. Next, please. Okay, so if we're going from left where the traffic signal is shown, that's Johnson Road, and we are going along 6th Avenue, which would really be westbound, and we get to the interchange that we are talking about tonight. Now, don't look at the design on this and say, oh my God, I don't like that. I don't want roundabouts. I hate this. I hate that. That is just simply a representation to have something on paper. It is has nothing to do with what we might end up coming back to you with. So ignore that. Ignore it in your comments, because it really doesn't have anything to do with where we're going. Next slide, please. One of the things that we found when we're doing our research back in the 90s about roads is it was easy to say, oh, they're noisy, they're pollution, there were a lot of things that were easy. One of the things that we finally recognized is highways become barriers, and they could become awful barriers. And as you're thinking about outcomes, I might ask you to think about highways as barriers as we move forward. So next slide, please. So now moving again, we're moving down 6th Avenue towards 19th Street. And you can see in that one location, and that's where Kenny Run comes under 6th Avenue at this point in time. And there is a new wildlife crossing that has been designed. It's probably 80+% done by CDOT for a new wildlife crossing as a standalone project at that location. As this interchange got funded, it was apparent to CDOT and to all of us that that new wildlife crossing will have to integrate into things that we are doing to improve the heritage US6 interchange. So at this point in time for CDOT, that's kind of on hold as we go through this design process. Then we will integrate and they will finish that. Now there's a chance CDOT will look at it as a combined project going forward. The wildlife crossing is funded for design, but not for construction, as is this project on 6th and Heritage. We are funded for design. At this point in time, we are not funded for construction, but they may get combined into a single project or they may stay as two separate projects, but they've been coordinated. So moving on to next slide. So here we have the first constructed project under the Golden Plan. And if you look at the Golden Plan, you will see a interchange with a couple of roundabouts and a wide area in gray or purple. And again, that is just a place marker for an interchange, because if you look at this, this is clearly not what we built. But the project for Heritage Road in scale and in scope is similar, perhaps even a little bit, well, we've got a little bit more money in this one, so that what we're thinking about trying to accomplish is similar to what we were looking to accomplish at this one. Moving on, please, next slide. So now if we look forward to the north, 93 is part of it, and we're going to move pretty quickly here. Next slide. So now you can see where the grade separation is on the left with the roundabouts that were never built at US6 and 19. So again, what you see on this paper is very unlikely to be what gets built specifically at the interchange. But so now we move all the way down the hill to the creek, past the creek, and we show a grade separated interchange at State Highway 58 and State Highway 93. And then moving next slide up, you will see we're coming back up the hill on 93. We do show widening in that area. We do show a lot of noise mitigation. We show for Iowa Street an overpass, not an interchange. And we even show a bit of a tunnel in that area to potentially improve the connection from the neighborhoods over to where Mitchell School is. And then moving ahead to the next slide, you will see that there is an interchange plan for Washington Avenue and Highway 93. And then Highway 93 starts diverging off onto the new alignment to the west. It goes over Golden Gate Canyon. It continues north beyond the city limits, and at some point ties back in just beyond the north city limits of Golden into 93. So that's the corridor. Now let's move to the next slide. And this is where we want to talk about community values. And it's these community values and your outcomes that we're really looking for comments and input on tonight. So we have these themes, and we have A through I, and I'll just go through the themes quickly. Accessible and walkable is a value of our community. And so at this stage, the design team is going to look at all of these values and think about them as we look to put the design together. But again, your outcomes around these things. So theme B, we're an active outdoor community, and we are very concerned about the environment and our environment. And that will be, your thoughts on that will be important to us. We move on to theme C, then we have safe, clean, quiet neighborhoods. And that is something that we think we improved the neighborhoods to the west with 19 and 6, and we would be looking at that for the neighborhoods around here. So tell us what that outcome might feel like to you. We value local businesses and our downtown, and we do have local businesses that are attached to this intersection. So we will have to keep them in mind because we do value them. So next slide. History and education. And history from the area is important, and education, to the extent that there are schools and neighborhoods on either side, that is important to us. We are a family and kid-friendly community. And as we look at that, then we might find an easy, safe way to build a pedestrian bridge, but it may not feel that family and kid-friendly. It may feel like a bridge over a nasty old road, and we hope we could do better than that. We are friendliness in our community. Community is important. We know our neighbors. We are friends with our neighbors. And then finally, theme I, that we have a sense of community. And that's where I'm going to take you back to the slide that said barriers. And it is hard for us to knit a sense of community throughout the Golden when we have neighborhoods or areas that feel cut off. And it is a big barrier like that road that can hurt that sense of community. So think about that as we're talking about values. So, okay, moving on. Now it's time to hear from you. So we want outcomes, not designs. You can also comment at guidinggolden.com. Guiding Golden will be the first best place to keep up with what we are doing with the project, where we are with the project, meetings, new inputs we're looking for. We will post them in all kinds of places, but Guiding Golden will have the most current, up-to-date, and I think the most information. So, as I said, we do have a few questions for you. So, Kara, I am done jabbering. You could move on.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Kyra. A couple of really quick housekeeping items for everybody. If you're not really familiar with Zoom, we are going to be continuing to use the chat feature in Zoom. If that is not up on your screen and you want to use the chat or see with those chats, you just hover on the bottom of your screen and there'll be a little icon. It looks like in a comic when someone has a message coming out. So you just click on that and you can access the chat. And then you can also mute and unmute yourself there or on your own image or name, depending on what interface you have. We are going to continue. That was the conclusion of our first part of the evening's exercises. We're going to move forward with some keypad polling, which I'm going to let Kyra tell you about. And then we're also going to take some open-ended comments via a virtual post-it note exercise. So Kyra, if you wouldn't mind giving folks an overview of Mentimeter.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jay. So we're going to take an interactive survey. So if everyone could please go to menti.com, shown on the screen, either on your phone or computer, and enter the 6-digit code that's shown. If someone comes to the meeting late, the code and the website will be shown at the top of each slide during this survey. A couple of things to note about Mentimeter before we get into it. If you are taking it on your phone, make sure to scroll all the way down for multiple choice options because some things might be cut off on your screen. There will be a few questions that require write-in answers. Please only write in what the answer to the question is, what your answer is. If you have any unrelated comments or questions to the specific question that we're asking, please put those in the Zoom chat, not in the survey answer. And just know that every write-in answer will be shown live as results on the screen, so everyone will be able to see your comments. If you have more personal comments or you're not comfortable sharing your comments publicly, you can use the Guiding Golden comment option after the meeting. All right, after everyone has a few moments to log in and get started. I can't see the Zoom chat while I'm sharing my screen, but Jay, if you could just let me know if anyone has trouble.
Yes, absolutely, I'll do that. So far, so good.
All right. Another thing, you can only take this survey once per device. So if you're on your phone, you can only take it once on your phone. And once you submit your answers, you won't be able to retake it. The survey will be made available on Guiding Golden following the meeting as well. So if you want to opt out of the survey right now, you can always go back and take it later. One second. One moment here, sorry. All right, looks like we are getting some answers here. And share, sorry about that.
All right.
All right, please submit your answers. If you submitted while I was talking in the beginning, please check to make sure it went through. And we can see live results here of what everyone is saying. How long have you lived in Golden?
Yeah, so we have quite a few answer options on this one. It's because in our experience working in Golden, we tend to have a really good variety of folks who have lived in Golden a long time and people who are brand new to Golden, and also people who are really invested in Golden who may not live in the city proper. So as you're seeing here, about a third of people who have responded so far, which is only 9 of you. So hopefully more people can log into the menti.com, use that code up on top, 187491, and log in there. But about a third, longer than 20 years, about a fifth of folks, 11 to 20 years. We have some people who live outside of Golden, but live in the county, that's another fifth. Another fifth outside of Jefferson County. We'll give it another few minutes. We should, hopefully we have more responses. I think of non-staff, non-consultant folks, we have at least 45 or 50 people on the call. And if you are having an issue with the Mentimeter, you can chat me privately or just generally to everybody. Okay, let's give that another couple of seconds. And it's okay if you missed this first question too. We just wanted to, one, warm people up, and two, get an idea of what sort of representation we have in the meeting. All right. Do you want to advance to the next question, Kyra?
Yep.
All right, so this is you may have seen one of these before, a word cloud. Fun thing about this one is that it moves and changes dynamically as you are responding. So Stonebridge has the most responses right now because it's the biggest word on the screen. And then it looks like maybe Mesa Meadows, North Historic, and then the others are about equal right now. So you enter what neighborhood you live in. We did actually look at a list of the Golden neighborhoods, and we thought that was probably too long of a drop-down multiple choice question. So we were letting folks self-identify here. So we have 15 responses so far. We'll give it another maybe 30 seconds to type in anything else. So far Golden Ridge and Stonebridge have the most representation, followed by Beverly Heights and North Historic. Great. All right, getting a couple more in here. Someone lives in Conifer. We have Dakota Ridge is identified, Applewood. Heritage, Broomfield, Lookout Mountain. Great. And then if we could advance to the next question, Kara. All right. So a bunch of people actually have responded already. So how often do you pass through the US6 and Golden interchange, or I guess right now it's more of an intersection, but through this spot that our meeting is about. So we have daily, 1 or more times a day. Over a third of the folks who've responded already are moving through that frequently. And we understand that this might be a tough one since travel patterns and behaviors so different right now. But you can basically say generally, maybe prior to mid-May, how often do you move through this intersection or interchange? Approximately once a week is pretty high as well, 20%, several times per week, 20%, 1 to 3 times per month, and then a few times per year, 4%. So most people are moving through here almost weekly, if not more frequently. So a really important piece of the network in terms of how we're moving around Golden in the region. Next question, Kyra. All right, how do you move through the US6 and Heritage Road interchange most often? So we have the majority of people, nearly 80%, driving a car, another 3% riding in a car. So that would make up about that 81% now. And then the other folks are biking. If you look at those other ways that we're asking, I think some of the preliminary observations that our team has had is it's pretty difficult to move through, using those different modes, if not impossible at this point. So as we get into more of these questions and some of the open-ended responses, we'll be interested to hear what you would prioritize as ways to get through there. So the next question. What are some of the issues and challenges associated with US6 and Heritage Road interchange that the project needs to address? Animal protection, traffic flow, traffic backups on US6, biking connectivity. Someone else said traffic backup, so the congestion. Related to that, the amount of traffic noise. Someone said the extremely heavy traffic load during rush hour. Long waits coming out of the Jeffco government campus on Heritage Road as you're approaching 6. Traffic congestion, unsafe for pedestrians. Someone else mentioned lots of noise again. Someone did the Qbert symbols, I think that is, for those of you who are familiar with old Atari games. So I think that means they think it's really messed up. We have better, safer, quicker pedestrian and bicycle connections, less idling. Motorcycle noise from through traffic backing up east and west. Noisy beeping, sound concerns again. So noise, congestion, connectivity for bikes in particular, it sounds like wanting to improve. Designed for pedestrians and bikes, so people on foot and on wheels. Busy road, not bike friendly. The left turns are really challenging. Surface intersection below curb, hard to navigate on a bike, especially with a trailer. So thinking about not just maybe that, what we'd sometimes call the fast and fearless crowd, but families, people pulling trailers, maybe people pushing strollers, dangerous to pedestrians. All right, great thoughts and inputs here. We got 82 responses, that's awesome. Feel free to add more there, but we're gonna advance to the next one. So in 1 to 3 words, so it could be a short phrase, a word if you can do it that succinctly. What is the most important thing that this project must accomplish to be deemed a success? There's going to be a lot of investment in time and money, a lot of your own personal time this evening, and hopefully moving forward, tracking along with the process and as we get further into design and construction. So at the end of the day, when we look back, how can we say, evaluate whether or not the project is successful? We have congestion being reduced, that we separate the grades, non-stop through on Golden on 6th, noise mitigation, reducing traffic, improving safety, improving the overall aesthetics and beauty, that we reduce that noise that several people commented on, minimize the inconvenience, that we have multimodal uses. For those who may not be as savvy in the transportation realm or have participated in projects like that, the different ways we get around are called travel modes. So if it's multimodal, it means that it can accommodate a lot of different ways to get around. Walking, biking, transit, driving your car. Freight, obviously, is really important in this intersection. Let's see, what else do we have? Nonstop, we said already. Smooth connections. And people are putting a few more than 3 words, but it's good. We're sticking with 5 or fewer, I think. But that's okay. We want to just build it, someone said. Fluid movement. We want to adjust the wait time at the light. Great. Okay. So a few folks have said they submitted before we started. Those answers will be captured. And so we should be good there. And then someone also used in the chat said that they tied the brand to the Lariat Loop. That's interesting. So suggesting some ideas on the naming of the project. Let's go to the next question, Kyra. Great. So we pre-populated this with a few answers. There is an other here. And if you, unfortunately via this medium, there's no way to have you type in your other answer. So if you prefer, you can, to choose other, you can put your description in the chat of the Zoom meeting. But you can see there's a handful of options here that are really jumping out to the front. So reducing congestion and delays for cars and trucks being one of those things that's most important if we have to make some trade-offs. And improving safety and comfort for cyclists is another one that's jumping out. Nearly kind of equal weight right now, given our 48 responses so far. Improving safety and comfort for pedestrians, not too far behind. Enhancing the general aesthetics. So it seems like people are interested in that gateway element, the sort of the look and feel, but the functionality would be, if we had to make a trade-off, we'd prioritize safety and comfort for pedestrians, bicyclists, and folks in cars and trucks. And then, don't want to miss it, improving wildlife connectivity is jumping up here a little bit too. Some of those that, if we had to make a trade-off, maybe in an ideal situation, we'd accomplish all of these. But 0 people have said creating places to stop and gather. Only 2 have said improving drainage and water quality. Only 2 improving safety and comfort for people with disabilities. And just so everyone knows, we will obviously be designing to the American with Disabilities Act requirements. So ADA will be incorporated into the project throughout the design process. And then I guess just a chance, a couple of people did say other. Is there, if you want to unmute yourself and explain what your other priority would be, I want to welcome that. Anyone want to elaborate on their other response? Okay, no problem. And I guess that pattern that I had identified up front is holding pretty true here. So reducing congestion and delays and improving safety and comfort for bicyclists and pedestrians are our front runners. With general aesthetics, wildlife connectivity, not too far behind, gateway elements, and then everything else seems to be kind of making way for those higher priorities. Next question. All right, so we have a couple here just about process. I know normally we'd do this at the end of the meeting, but we want to sort of minimize how much we have to jump back and forth between these different input mechanisms. So how did you hear about this meeting? This information will be really helpful for us as we plan future meetings, assuming that at least some of that engagement will be virtual. But even if when we're doing in-person meetings, which hopefully we are, knock on wood, able to do during this process, some of these different ways of getting the word out will be helpful. So you can see email and other is a big one there. So next door, someone said, as part of the other. I don't know if there's other others out there.
Hey,
If
Jay.
everyone heard about it, their next door. Yeah, go ahead.
Jay, just wanted to let you know there was a few who said they saw the signs on US6, so that's just something to keep in mind in the future.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I actually saw that myself. Driving along right at the intersection, we had one of the dynamic signs. So yeah, that's a great point. So the signs next door, great. And then the next question, and this is our last question, the Mentimeter, I believe. Where are you most likely to look for information about the project in the future? And this, we can do our best to use all these avenues, honestly, but as far as sort of prioritizing what to do first and where we put the most effort, this is helpful. So we're seeing the Guiding Gold website, the city's website, and email jumping in at the top there. Great. And was I correct, Kyra? Is that our last question?
Yep, you're right.
All right, great. So Kyra's going to stop sharing now. If you're still working your way through those questions, you still have the ability to respond. So just because she stopped sharing the results doesn't mean that we don't capture those. And we will make all those results available. We'll probably export them tomorrow and make those available on the Guiding Golden website. And just for clarification, we're planning on making the interactive kind of self-guided, self-paced exercise available on Friday. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We'll, I love this Menti tool, but we don't have the capacity to do it online. So it'll be more kind of a traditional survey that everyone will be able to go through on Guiding Golden. And we will absolutely have it up by Friday. We'll get it up earlier if we can, but I'm only promising to Friday because there's a lot of moving pieces to this.
Great, thanks, Anne. And then just so everyone is aware, some of the others was Golden Informer and goldentoday.com were some other good sources. So I'm going to share what may look somewhat familiar to folks in that this is a kind of a whiteboard, and we have the ability to put Post-its on here. We're already capturing some of our general comments and other themes, and I'm going to zoom in for everybody. I just wanted to give you kind of an orientation. So it will be more legible, I promise. But we have a couple people, including Kyra and Hannah from MIT, who are going to be capturing comments. And we are going to be asking you to use the chat feature here. And then as we're going through, if there's clarification we need, if folks need a break from me, kind of providing the play-by-play, we'll call on a few folks to chime in as well. Feel free to add questions in there too. I know we had a couple early on, but the team is available to answer questions through this period. And as folks know, we started promptly, well, almost promptly at 6, and we want to give this enough time. So I'm going to kind of zoom in here, but what we have are the 9 values that are identified in the Vision 2030 plan. And so we're going to step through kind of value by value and get an understanding of how you think that this particular project, the investment made in the US6 Heritage Road intersection, ultimately Interchange, can help advance this community value for Golden. So that first one, as Dan told us, is accessible and walkable. So we value being a community that is walkable, bikeable, and accessible to all. So using the chat, if you want to elaborate on how we might be able to achieve this with the investment in an interchange. How can we make Golden more accessible and walkable? Charles said that several of our team members and the staff may like this, that the 19th Street work was excellent. He said, just duplicate it. So I guess we can just pick up our plans and build the 19th intersection here.
If it were only that easy.
Exactly. Yeah, we have different grades here, different connections we're trying to make potentially. So we got Jeremy chimed in via the chat. Thank you, Jeremy. Make bike and pedestrian facilities high comfort. Jeremy, if you don't mind unmuting, how would you describe high comfort when it comes to biking and walking?
Hi, we're going to be noisy here.
No problem.
Two of us here, but just making sure that it's not just any kind of facility. You know, we have a spot for people to get through, but something that, you know, the kids would be comfortable using if necessary. Something that maybe has, you know, separation or enough width, or at least is intuitive and easy to use. Anything else?
Great. Thank you so much. Someone said overpass, underpass for bike and ped. Looks like this is planned for a bridge nearby. There's a pedestrian bridge a little further down the corridor already. But I know that someone before the meeting actually emailed me in response to getting their invite, and they were wondering about, you know, are we going to be addressing connectivity of the pathways on both sides of 6? Someone said agree, something similar to 19th. So people are generally fans of the work at 19th. That's great. So we have some local kind of inspiration. We know what generally works for Golden, but as Dan said, there's a lot of different kind of constraints and needs at this particular intersection. So we can definitely learn from that. Accommodating fearless and family bicycle users. Yeah, so the fast and fearless, we call them sometimes, or the Lycra crowd, which admittedly I guess I'm part of. But you know, also people who maybe haven't biked in a while, older adults, people with families, kids who are new to biking, that you could feel comfortable taking them through the intersection. Designed so bikes and peds don't compete with the cars. I think that is. Encourage through traffic to use the main highways and supplemental roads. Discourage through traffic on heritage. So that has to do with sort of the prioritization as you're moving through the intersection. So the 6 and 19 intersection would be a good example of that, where you kind of have to make a decision and work hard to actually use, you know, 19th. So it seems like people are suggesting a similar thing here. All right, slower traffic on the bridge to make it safe. 5 for the fast traffic would move underneath. Great. Okay, so feel free to continue to make comments on this accessible and walkable area. Someone said reduce the speed of cars.
I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead. What was that? Oh, maybe someone accidentally spoke up. Okay, well, we're getting some good comments on the accessible and walkable. Like I said, you can continue to make those. But let's move to the second value theme, which is active outdoors and environment. So Golden, we value being an active, healthy community that appreciates the outdoors and our connection to the natural environment. So what are ways that, you know, through an interchange, you know, design, development, what are some of the things that we'd want to achieve with that to continue to realize this value of having an active, outdoor, active environment in Golden? And just because I'm panned over here to active outdoors and environment, I see that there's a few more comments coming in on the accessible and walkable. So Kyra and Hannah are capturing those and putting those over to the left. But any ideas on the natural environment or active outdoors? Vegetation, someone said. Someone else said coexist with the wildlife corridors. Yeah, the 19th and US6 interchange definitely provides a wildlife crossing opportunity. Someone else said some shade. Designed to aggressively minimize the traffic noise. So yeah, as far as environmental kind of impacts, potential nuisances, noise is a big one. And we heard about that during that polling exercise as well. Someone said softscape. Maximize the green spaces and tree canopy. Yeah, Paul, do you mind unmuting for a second in speaking to sort of the ability to plant on top of a structure like this?
Well, for the actual bridge that spans the highway from kind of a abutment wall to abutment wall that supports the bridge, and usually that's about 100 feet wide. We have to use specially designed soils that have supplements in them that make the soil lighter. And then we have to choose trees that we're not going to put anything like an oak that's going to be 100 feet tall or 75 feet tall, but we have to stay with trees like some of the smaller honey locust varieties and ornamental trees that still provide shade, but stay in the 40 to 50 foot height to minimize weight onto the bridge deck. When we're doing this study, we actually have our structural engineer calculate how much does a tree weigh at maturity, and that goes into designing the girders that support the bridge. So those are all careful considerations we have to take from a landscape design and kind of vegetating the bridge structure itself. Beyond that, we can do anything on the ground plane. Shrubs, grasses, flowers, watered, irrigated grasses, native grasses, the whole mix is available.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. Good clarification. And then some other people made comments while Paul was providing that explanation. So they suggested porous pavers, other ways to spread out the water rather than contributing to runoff. Don't overdo the bridge. Cost is important. So a more general comment about physical sustainability, not overbuilding something. Using native plants, have lots of trees. This comment in the lower right here helps keep the noise down, provides a shade, but also keeping views of the mountains. So that's the first time we've heard that one is considering the scenery. So someone else said, you know, enable the pedestrians to view the scenery. Great. Minimize large elevation differences to cross. So what that would do is, especially for the Heritage Road connection, try to avoid really steep grades. That could be challenging for, well, for a lot of different individuals actually. So try to minimize that. Great. And then let's move on to C. Again, feel free to continue to enter into the chat some of the ideas about active outdoors and environment. But our next value theme is safe, clean, and quiet neighborhoods. So we value safe, quiet, clean, well-maintained neighborhoods in Golden. How might this contribute to our neighborhood cleanliness, safety, and quiet? We heard about noise earlier. So clean and simple landscaping on the commercial side. Don't make it feel like a bridge over a highway. Like 19th Street, make it a park with a highway under it. It's great.
Somebody mentioned funding for maintenance. Maintenance is always an important consideration. We hear it frequently on our public projects that if it's not well maintained, it's not worth doing. So I think I agree with that comment. That's important.
Absolutely. Reducing the auto pollution. Reducing idling obviously contributes to lowering the pollution. So that's great. As we address congestion, not only helps people move through quickly perhaps, but it actually can reduce that pollution. Bike and pedestrian facilities that are easy to maintain, gives it perhaps that neighborhood feel, neighborhood connectivity. Speed humps, keeping the speed and noise down. Light pollution from autos. Yeah, so cleanliness isn't just about, you know, air pollution or trash, but light pollution is something we want to consider as well. Safety being a really high priority. Visibility is an important element of safety. So making sure that, so there's something called CPTED principles, crime prevention through environmental design. And so that is, a lot of that has to do with, you know, the height of vegetation, visual barriers that are creating, making sure that there's, you know, eyes on the bridge, I guess, in this case, make sure that we're increasing safety. We're, you know, maintaining or improving sight lines, reducing noise, Low incline again was mentioned, so we don't hear the truck brakes. Yeah, and hopefully they won't have to stop as much either, which would help with that. Great. All right. So really great comments here. We're getting a few more coming in. One about snow and ice melt, which grade would contribute to that, the amount of pavement we have, how we're dealing with some of that drainage and perviousness, obviously. Yeah, really good comment there. Let's go to our next value theme. We're working our way through here. So we're almost halfway. Local business in downtown. And I know this is a little far from downtown, but if we think about it through that kind of local business commercial lens, and perhaps we can improve connectivity to downtown through this too. I'm not sure what people think, but what are some of the ideas around sort of maintaining this or improving this value for Golden around local businesses? So Ethan said that I said it already, connectivity, so connecting to the local businesses. Make it easy for residents off Heritage to get downtown, not just by car, but by bike also. Keep 19th as welcome to Golden Gateway. Yeah, Eric, if you don't mind unmuting, is a suggestion that we don't want to compete with the existing gateway that's already created at 19th, or can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That's my general thought. I mean, there's already such, with the linking lookout interchange, it feels such, such a welcoming environment as it is, and really kind of an arrival into downtown. That I feel preserving that would be a good idea, not competing with it.
Great. Do you think, Eric, while you're unmuted, and then others can chime in if they'd like to, either via the chat or you can unmute, but do you think there's an opportunity for a gateway, just not one that can, one that doesn't compete with the one that already exists at 19th, or should we really kind of reserve that gateway experience for until you're further down the corridor?
Yeah, that's kind of my personal perspective, is to keep the gateway kind of where it is and not compete. And this feels a little more like get people connected there.
Great. And then a couple other people chimed in. Rich said that he likes a billboard that says Farmers Market this Saturday. Thinks that's really attractive. Sarah suggested maybe it's a different kind of gateway, a gateway for the trail system. That's interesting. So maybe for the motor vehicles coming in on 6, 19th makes the most sense as the gateway, but for other modes, this could serve as a gateway, particularly for that trail network as a launching option.
There was a question about how the 19th Street interchange has changed noise in the neighborhood up in Beverly Heights. And I can speak to that. When we lowered the highway and put a lid on it, it reduced the noise in the neighborhood. To the point where some of the residential properties that were impacted by noise started to meet our goals and standards within the city.
Great. Yeah, so my presumption is it's a better quality of life living in those homes, and presumably it probably helped their property values too. So that's great. What else do we have here? Make local businesses more accessible to light rail and the Jeffco building. Great.
Jay, I wanted to just, a couple people mentioned easier access to the Jeffco building, so I wondered if one of them would be willing to unmute and kind of speak to their thought process on that.
Yeah, great idea, Ian. So it's someone who mentioned the Jeffco government building or has a thought about it. Can you elaborate? It'll require unmuting yourself. Okay.
I'm not the person who made the comment, but right now from that intersection, you have to drive almost like a Nautilus shape to get into the government complex. So it's kind of a roundabout way to get there.
Gotcha. So improving the sort of the wayfinding and maybe even improving how direct the access is. Great. And I'm now realizing that Nancy suggested I ask, so apologies, Nancy. Totally agreeing with the noise reduction in 19 for the whole through sections below grade. So liking that approach. Someone said, I think it was probably responding to Joel's comment, can't speak to the normal traffic, the truck, motorcycle racing noises as bad as ever. So maybe the louder noises are still coming through. Golden Ridge Road has become quite busy. Make sure weave and turning conflicts are minimized. I'm not sure who made that comment, but would you mind maybe elaborating a little bit on that? About the Golden Ridge Road being busy?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I just noticed, over the years that Golden Ridge Road has, been built out, and there's a lot of southbound lefts, and then I guess exiting, be northbound rights, that are all going to be heading down to this interchange. So we just need to make sure that there's not a bunch of weave operations. Like right now, for example, if you're southbound on US6 and coming into Heritage Road and you're making that left onto Golden Ridge Road, there is that weave conflict there with left turners coming from US6 on the other side. So just those connections that they're made efficient.
Great, thank you. All right, I was actually afraid we weren't gonna get that many post-its for this value. So thanks, this is fantastic. Feel free to continue making comments here. Ethan, I don't know if it's tongue in cheek or not, but he said, did someone reference a Nautilus? Sounds like a brand in the making. All right, value theme E, we have convenience and amenities. We value retaining convenience to services and amenities and our proximity to Denver and the mountains. So maybe this one is really obvious, but if you wouldn't mind stating the obvious in the chat, that would be great. So what are some ways that we can improve convenience and access to the amenities that we have in Golden? So someone said weekend shuttle between Jeffco Station and downtown would be great, like the fixed route flex ride. Yeah, so maybe, I'm not sure how that would influence this particular intersection, but that connectivity would definitely help. Someone said improve the signal at Warner Drive, perhaps another roundabout there. So there's a lot of thoughts about the connections, in the broader network. Oh, Jacob is clarifying that his comment about the weekend shuttle was related to the downtowns and small business support. Any other ideas on the convenience and amenities? I think a few of the comments that were already made related to, perhaps a trail kind of gateway or launching off point. Sarah just made a comment about bike stations. Obviously, the priority of improving comfort and safety for pedestrians and bicyclists has to do with, convenience. Make the crossing at Heritage, especially at Warner, easier. Same thing. The area is a key connection to light rail and trail connections, Apex open space, businesses. Great, yeah, agreed. Bike stations. This is the second mention, I think, of bike stations. Does someone mind elaborating on that? Maybe Sarah or anyone else who had mentioned that? Sarah, do you mind unmuting?
Sorry, I was typing.
No problem.
Like rental, bike rental stations as well.
Okay, great. There's other types of bike stations out there too. So sometimes you can do long-term bike parking, as another type of bike station. So e-cycle is mentioned here. Thinking about other what's called micro mobility. So there's like the electric scooters I mean, maybe there's some designated stations here. Access to the splash and golf course could be improved. Water point for bikers and hikers. So how do we monetize at this location? And because it is a crossroads of sorts, maybe this is an opportunity to provide water, other types of amenities. We got someone's comment about having to leave the meeting. Gotta go. Existing roundabouts on Heritage were a nightmare during construction, but most obviously in design. It is largely the same team, so we'll try to learn from any mistakes made in that same process or that earlier process.
It's the same team as the Interchange at 19th and Heritage. It's a different engineering firm than did the roundabouts on Heritage.
Oh, yes, thank you for the clarification. As Dan pointed out, the placeholder has roundabouts, but the interchange itself does not. So that is a different team. Another comment about a roundabout at Golden Ridge and Warner could reduce pavement space from 2 to 3 lanes. So some more general comments here. Signage, great. Yeah, so how do you know where those amenities are? How convenient things can be? Signage can be a really key piece to this. Maybe a community garden, which would help with access to food, a social space. Great. Let's go to our 6th value here, history and education. We value our appreciation of history and the arts and support for quality education. Are there any ways that you can think of where the interchange, this intersection and the improvements being made there could contribute to appreciation of history and the arts? And education, for that matter. Jeff said like 19th, add some art to the interchange. Diane also mentioned public art installation, maybe an art exhibit with a link to the City of Golden. It's an interesting idea. That the site, the interchange, is actually really close to a couple of extremely significant historic sites. Considering this is a key connection to schools on both sides, so more of a kind of a literal connection supporting quality education. Boards to illustrate the history of Golden. So that would be like interpretive signage. So you see those along trails a lot of times. So maybe that, yeah, it could be educating people about history. Info about the hogback was mentioned. Wasn't there talk of including a drive-in movie event space around here? I'm not sure about that. Dan or Ann, do you guys have any recollection of that idea?
At Heritage Square.
The idea is we normally have movies in the park and we can't really do that this year. So we're looking to see if we could do them as a short-term drive-in theater where you use your phones at Heritage.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
It's not a long-term installation.
Okay. Yeah, and if people recall and it's not to say that we couldn't try to achieve it still, but in the trade-offs question in the polling, the idea of a place to stop and gather was scored pretty low here. But definitely we can connect people to places to do that. Someone said interpretive panel for nearby Lime Kiln and Trip Ranch. There's great art pieces around town already. This would be a good spot too. More art structures again. Geology display with a view up Highway 6. What we are looking at, that's really interesting. So maybe taking advantage of some of those views that we have, some of the interesting formations, and some of the exposed earth that we have. Changing information on electronic signs, so maybe it's dynamic, some of the information that is provided. Really great comments here. Dinosaurs are part of the history here. Any fossils maybe in the area? Maybe exhibits. Make the hardscape and other typical civil elements artistic. And recycling educational signs. Be gentle to the environment. We don't want to just produce a lot of sign shops are going nuts right now, by the way. I don't know if people know that, but We have to sign everything as a result of the pandemic. So yeah, hopefully we could recycle some of those signs. Key connection again to the middle school and high school. Someone mentioned those schools on both sides. Great. So we're filling up this area again. Feel free to continue to provide comments. A little slow start here, but a lot of fantastic ideas on history, education, and the arts. Let's go to, I think, our 7th value out of the 9, family and kid-friendly. We value being a family-friendly, kid-friendly, and kid-supportive community. What are ways that through the design process, through the outcomes that we're trying to achieve in particular, we can make Golden even more family and kid-friendly? Seems impossible, but maybe there's some ideas here. On that last point with the education schools, someone said that because there's no shade, well, they're saying at 93 and 19, doesn't seem to incentivize stopping at the park. So I guess a lesson learned in creating any sort of space to gather, a nice even bench to sit at, we want to make sure there's good shade. Someone said there's already good bike connectivity, or already said, excuse me, but we need bike connectivity comfortable for kids. There are many gardens and paths at the Jeffco Center. Make these more accessible. So there's already awesome amenities nearby. Can we provide more access to them, maybe even let people know that they're there? I go to the Jeffco Center pretty often. I didn't know about all of those, so some education around that. 19th Street Park does not seem to get a lot of use, but they like this. David likes the size of the lid. Michelle said that we need trash cans. Paul said water and dog fountains. Slower walking speeds for our older neighbors in the design calculation. So thinking about all ages across the spectrum. And I'm guessing, and Jeremy, if you want to, if I get this wrong, feel free to unmute and elaborate, but I'm guessing you mean like crossing times that are provided if there's any sort of signalization. We'd want to make sure that those accommodate kind of our slowest moving residents.
Yep, that's right.
Great. Safe and comfortable enough that parents will be okay with kids traversing unattended. I think that's a really awesome goal. We'll see if we can achieve it. But that it's one of those kind of litmus tests, right? Like if you let your kids play out in the street, it says a lot about the neighborhood, about the safety of that street. So could we get to a point where we feel comfortable with kids walking to school on their own, moving through this intersection? Maybe make it a walking park instead of a sit and stay park. Create walking and bike friendly interactive art. It's a really cool idea. Luke seconded the water fountain, one of the best features of the 19th Street Bridge. Great.
Hey, Jay, this is Nancy again. I would just be curious. I believe it was Casey who talked about, who's mentioned kids a couple of times, and maybe this comes up on Guiding Golden, but I think in support of this value with family and kid friendly, I would be really interested in knowing like what are the major between schools and what else are the kids really wanting to get to. I think that would a lot of our design. Yeah, that's a great point, Nancy. So if anyone wants to unmute and chime in on that front, or as Jeremy, and I apologize, I know it's a family, I just keep using the name on there in the Zoom, but Splash was called out as a destination. Are there ideas of what kids would want to get to, or families near the interchange? Daycare is on both sides. We got, that we should reach out to youth in particular to get their ideas. Reach out to Bell Middle School. High school kids are walking to the climbing gym. That's great. All right. So if you have additional ideas on the family and kid-friendly value, please enter those in the chat. And then we're going to move over to more general friendliness in neighbors. So we value maintaining friendliness and connections with neighbors and other residents.
I know we've filled most of this board. You probably feel a little exhausted, and maybe there's some overlapping ideas at this point. But if you have any ideas, particularly on the maintaining friendliness or connections with neighbors and other residents, it would be great to add some things here. Looking at the chat, we're getting wide walkways so the ped traffic is not congested. There's a mention of the rose garden nearby and the wetlands ecosystem. Any other ideas for how do we improve friendliness? I don't know that I've ever heard an interchange being characterized as friendly before, but if we can do it anywhere, I think we can do it here. Jeff said he highly supports the value of creating something that creates connections in the community as opposed to the barrier that the traditional highways create. So that goes back to Dan's presentation of, historically, I don't even know that people were thinking about that impact that highways have when a lot of highways were originally built, of dividing the community. So how do we really link folks together? Pedestrian level lighting. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, probably a lot of the things that were mentioned in terms of making this a comfortable space, one that celebrates Golden, talks about the history, educates people, would contribute to then at least, social interaction and more use of the space by people, outside of their cars. Which then, this comment, the design can make it look human friendly as opposed to industrial. Absolutely. Full separation of vehicles and pedestrian and bicycles was suggested, which is getting a little bit to the design side, but yeah, to be fully friendly, maybe that is, one of the outcomes we want to try to achieve. Great. All right. And then our last category here is sense of community. A little related here, but we value keeping and enhancing our sense of community pride in our diversity and tolerance of others, and our community character and community events. Golden values a community supported by a diversity of people, generations, activities, public spaces, and amenities. So are there ways that either we could celebrate what already exists in Golden, contribute to the diversity and sense of community in Golden through the investments that might be made at the interchange? I think I just did that. It's asking me to stack some notes. We're just going to do something here.
There should be an X in the upper right, Jay.
Got it. Thanks. Yep. All right. So while we're waiting for a few more comments to come in on this last value, and I'll admit, I think a lot of the other comments are related to this, or could be related to this, but we will be closing relatively soon for the meeting. So if you have other questions while we have everyone together, would invite those about the process, about the presentation that was made up front. And then I'll be turning it over to Anne to cover some next steps before we close out. So we are getting some ideas here on sense of community. Someone else mentioned maybe some public art, and particularly some that celebrates who we are as a community. Keeping it well maintained, so reflecting, the integrity of the community. Also looking at historical and signage, the amenities. While we're capturing a few more of these comments, Dan, do you mind responding to a question about the timeline for the project? Or Nancy?
Yeah, no, I can go ahead and do that. At this point, when we get this put together, then we will start looking at alternatives and ideas. we still need to get, we're bringing a contractor on board. We need to complete that process so that our estimating is good and our timelines are good. But remember, we are doing design, we are not doing construction. So at this point in time, given the original schedule and where we got started at, you would see probably another meeting of some kind to start looking at alternatives and commenting on them mid-fall, maybe mid-late fall. We then will refine those, come back a few more times, and hopefully have final design ideas put together, and we'll go to work on serious design with the expectation that about a year from this fall, we would sit down and go through the whole program with people before we do the absolute final designs. And we would expect to have the final design done and ready for construction either the very end of 2021 or first quarter-ish of 2022. One of the goals is, if in these stimulus packages that there is money for projects that are ready, that we could be in line to get that, and we're trying to set ourselves up for that. But right now, the design process will have public input, probably heavy public input starting in the fall, late fall through early part of the winter. And then at that point, we hope to be ready to move to final design. And Nancy, if I horrified you anywhere in there, you can correct me.
Dan, I'm used to your schedules by now. Just to clarify for Dan, we are looking at about an 18-month process, similar to those of you who all were involved with 6th and 19th, where we'll do an extensive public outreach alternatives, keep coming back to you several times to get your input through the end of the year into the beginning of next year. And then, as Dan said, we'll spend most of 2021 doing design, and then I'll let you speak to it, Dan, on if, with the hope that if eventually, if there's a stimulus package, we could find some funding for the project.
Great. And before, maybe Dan, if you did want to touch on that, before you do, I'll just capture a couple last comments here because I think they were really insightful. One got me excited: good restaurants and a beer garden in the neighborhood. And then some really thoughtful things about respecting different needs and values during the design process. So making sure that we're really considering all different kind of perspectives and needs, recognizing the space will be utilized by pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers from around the metro area. So making it welcoming and intuitive for these individuals and families. And a recognition that now is a really wonderful time to look for ways to celebrate and integrate diversity. I know doesn't look like we've done a lot here, but let me zoom out. We captured a lot of fantastic comments. Again, we'll be capturing these via this board. We'll be inviting more comment, and Ann will speak to that. But we'll make this, as well as those polling question results, available on the Guiding Golden website. And as we're wrapping things up, if you have additional comments, feel free to put those in the chat. Or questions, we'll keep an eye on those. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ann.
Yeah, this is Ann Byerly. Hey, I want to thank everyone for participating today. We really appreciate it. We know this is really out of the ordinary for public participation in Golden. It's super frustrating to us not to be able to meet in person, but we hope this gave at least some sense and an ability to participate in some back and forth conversation. One of the things I do ask is that if you have any thoughts about the tools that we used, or what was good about them, or what you wish they might have done better, please let us know, because there are a lot of tools out there. These were two that we felt met this meeting very well. But if you have different desires and hopes and outcomes for our future meetings, throw some comments into the chat right now, and we'll do our very best to accommodate you moving forward. the presentation that Dan did and some polling questions that won't look exactly like what we did using Mentimeter and the idea flip will be on Guiding Golden by Friday morning. If you know people who would like to, who weren't able to participate tonight that might be interested, please direct them to that. If you think of something coming out of this later that you wish you had included and told us about, please go there, and it'll be another opportunity to provide input. We will leave the comment period on this in general in this outcomes area open for 2 weeks once we post it on Friday. And then we're going to need to close it up so that we can turn all of this good information over to our design team and let them have some targets to go with. And like Dan said, this next phase will be our most creative, I hope, and the moment where we come up with a whole bunch of crazy ideas that we're able to bring back to you guys to get your feedback on how well we listened to you today and how well we're coming up with ideas that that are responsive to what you've told us. And while I would love to think that we will be in the community center at the end of October with big pictures that everyone can look at and get up close to, I'm inclined to believe we might be back in a format like this. So again, please, as much feedback on how we can make this really uncomfortable virtual process more comfortable for you to participate in, we'd love to hear it. And again, look for feedback. Oh, another really horrible thing I'm going to admit to you. One of the things I'm going to do with the registrations to this meeting is create an email distribution list that's associated with this project. So the next time we have a meeting, you will hear about it through an email that was generated in this. If you don't want to participate in my email list, please respond and let me know. I'll take you off of it. You're not burdened to be getting emails from the City of Golden regarding this project for the rest of your life. But I am going to take advantage of that and the opportunity that we got by you participating tonight. So I just have to, I guess, disclose and confess that to you all. But again, really, really, really thank you very much for participating. Guiding Golden is going to be our primary conduit with a lot of other tools that we'll try and take advantage of that will drive you to the detail on Guiding Golden. And hope that you will bear with us in what we think is going to be a really exciting next step in this 6 and 19 corridor, or 6 and 93 corridor. Oops. Anything else from the team or anyone else that's participating before we sign off?
And I just wanted to reiterate what everyone said and what's been said in the chat. We really appreciate everyone being involved in this virtual format. All the comments, the thoughtful ideas are going to be so great for us as a design team and help us really focus on what the community wants as we put this project together. So once again, thank you everyone for taking time out of your day, probably your dinner time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Great. I'll close us out. We are getting some pretty positive feedback in the chat about the virtual format, particularly those who have families who are cooking right now or maybe drinking wine. So kudos to you for that. But as Ann said, if you do have suggestions, please provide those. And also direct friends and neighbors to the Guiding Golden as well. That's open for you all to participate further, but please encourage others to participate as well, because the more voices we hear, the more reflective this will be of the entire Golden community. So thanks for your time tonight.
Bye, everyone.